Thank you so much, Jennifer, for that introduction. And as Jennifer mentioned today, on behalf of the Community Geeks team, composed by Andy Hughes, who unfortunately could not join us today, Stina Niemann, Katie Mattson, Brenda Reyes-Lua, and myself, welcome everyone to our session on Friday Forum. Before anything else, we would like to take a moment to recognize the support of PNC, who powered this pandemic pilot program, and the Bryant and Sievert Fund. We could not have done this without them. Now, let's dive in. We would love to share the agenda we're going to be covering today. We're going to start with a program overview to explain a little more about Community Geeks. We're going to be going over the Humboldt Consulting and Equity Center design thinking framework that we use as part of this program. We're going to share about student projects, and you're going to hear it from directly the students. And then we're going to transition into our community partner testimonials, who unfortunately we could not have them today, but we compiled a recording that will be helpful to just get their voices heard as well. And we're going to then transition into our call to action. And then at the end, as always, having a Q&A session. All right, so let's talk about the program itself. Community Geeks is a program where students were trained in Humboldt Consulting and Equity Center design thinking to help the needs of the local community through free of charge consulting services to nonprofit organizations in the area. Our hope was that through this program, students would gain professional skills while making long-lasting community impact. Community Geeks is a product of collaboration from 4 college offices: the Center for Career Engagement, the Center for Public Service, Garthwaite Leadership Center, and Gettysburg Entrepreneurial Thinkers. We had a total of 32 student participants in the program, 5 community partners, and 6 design challenges.
So I just wanted to give a very brief introduction of sort of why we started this program. Certainly in the Center for Career Engagement, we're always looking for opportunities to engage students in experiential programming. And so we were also inspired during the pandemic by a lot of the ways that people were connecting with community around the country. So we came together as offices and sort of figured out how we could engage in skill training and then also connect students both to the Gettysburg College community and the Gettysburg community as a whole.
Thank you, Katie. Now I'm going to give a brief overview about the toolkit that we provided the students with, the training we offered so that they would feel prepared to engage in this experiential learning in this type of work. And during the group development part of the training, we taught the students Humboldt Consulting, which really hones in on the helping relationship between the client and the consultant that really elevates the client's lived experience as their expertise, and the consultant operating on curiosity, caring, and commitment, really using that as the primary data to figure out how they can really help. So here, this is a diagram courtesy of Andy Hughes that outlines a wide variety of relationships that in a professional and in a personal way that people can engage in. And then here is where the Humboldt Consulting piece comes in, where you see your client as the experts. And we felt like the students were in a really good position to be the ones providing a fresh perspective and asking the questions, knowing that the community partners were the experts, the ones with the answers. But we were hoping that the community partners would find value in the students using the training and their college experience in asking questions that could lead to creative ideas that would help community partners meet needs that they have. So design thinking, a method for creative action, it's kind of really been specialized on by the Stanford School of Design, has the empathy part, which you see at the beginning of the process. And that's kind of really where the Humboldt Consulting piece comes in terms of the asking questions and empathizing with your client's lived experience. But then you also want to make sure that the designers don't help or design in a silo, that they're aware of the context and the equity challenges in which they try to help their client. And for nonprofit organizations in the local community, that was really important. So there have been sort of two stages added, the notice and reflect part here seen on the left and the right, but really weaved in throughout the process that help designers reflect and notice and become more aware of their privilege, power dynamics in the relationship, biases, and how they continue to learn with their client, from their client throughout the process. And with that, we are excited to have students representatives here from each team that are going to give a brief overview of their experience and the prototype they eventually ended up designing. So remember, students, you have about 3 minutes. If less, that's totally fine. We have our outline here, and I have the slides ready. So whenever we call on you, feel free to turn on your camera, unmute yourself for that time. And we're going to kick it off with first-year student Megan Peary, who was part of the team serving the Adams County Children's Advocacy Center. And Megan, just tell me when you want me to advance a slide. I know you had a few. Oh, here we are. Cool.
So, hi, everyone. I'm Megan from the Community Caregivers, and we were partnered with the Adams County Children's Advocacy Center for our design challenge. LIDA and the CAC challenged us to develop a communications plan to help the CAC stay in contact with the larger community, as well as other business partners they work with. So during our research and empathize stage, we conducted a few interviews, and we also created a survey to hear back from the community about what they would want to see in a communications plan. From our survey, we discovered that most people got their information through email. So with that, we created a three-pronged communications plan, which you'll see some of our brainstorming ideas for on the slide. The first prong of our plan was an email newsletter where we could put current events and relevant news in a nice, neat newsletter that could be sent out through email as what people said they found the easiest form of communication. We also created several social media accounts. Yeah, and here's an example of our newsletter. Another prong of our plan was to create social media accounts, so that way we could draw in new people to the CAC. Since the newsletter would be people who are familiar with it, the social media accounts would let us access people who are not familiar with the CAC and also give brief updates on what's going on. And then our third prong of our attack was a student role. We could have a student intern to make the newsletter, to make the social media posts. The CAC is really busy and they don't have a lot of time, and it takes a lot of dedication to make a very pretty newsletter and to make 3 different social media accounts and keep them updated. So we decided that a student role would be a great way to both keep their resources to a minimum, since a student intern would not necessarily have to be paid, as they would get experience in exchange. And then also they would keep their time well, since the student intern, also being more familiar with social media, would be able to dedicate themselves to these resources. So that way their communication plan could go off and they wouldn't be losing any resources they already have dedicated to their center. So we definitely learned a lot of practical skills during this process. I think active listening would probably be the one we learned the most during our empathize stage. We conducted a lot of interviews, and we really learned how to hear what was going unsaid, which lets us draw a lot of implicit connections between our very different interviews we conducted. And then also we were making a communications plan, but first we had to learn how to communicate with each other. So we definitely learned some practical skills, learning to communicate both with our community partner and with each other. So we created a flawless team and could use our time efficiently. So after learning to communicate with each other, we were really able to figure out the best way to communicate with the community as a whole. And then there's also some practical experience relevant to our classwork that we learned during this process too. Well, I've mentioned before that we made a survey for the communications. We wanted that survey to be as accessible as possible since we were focusing on communication. So we actually translated it into Spanish, which Paris did herself. So she got to apply her Spanish classes practically to our survey, so that way it could be more accessible. Izzy, another member of our team, she's a senior and she was doing a capstone project, but she actually had to conduct a lot of interviews for her capstone project. But this happened about a month after we conducted our interviews for our GIGS project. So she got to use a lot of her humble consulting knowledge from the GIGS interview to apply to her senior capstone project, which I'm sure she definitely appreciated. And I learned a lot about active listening. As I said before, I can now hear what people don't say when they're talking to me. And then I also have definitely gained some public speaking experience as evidence now, which will definitely help me in future presentations with my classes.
Thank you so much, Megan. And to quote Sarah Feldman, meeting virtually Friday at 4 p.m. has turned into one of her favorite things unexpectedly. So That was a plus. Next up is Katie Followin, who was on one of the Adams County Farmers Market Association teams.
Hi, I'm Katie. I worked closely with the Adams County Farmers Market group, as Stina just mentioned, and my group's goal was to increase student engagement at the farmers markets. And my group met on a weekly basis with a representative from the farmers market to ensure that we kept his knowledge and needs in mind throughout the entire process. And ultimately, after surveying the student population at Gettysburg, we determined that the best route to take was to find a way to incorporate attendance at the farmers market into a class credit opportunity. And in doing so, we reached out to each department head and found the most interest in first year seminars, business courses, Spanish, and environmental science courses. For each subject, we brainstormed ideas to involve the farmers market into their syllabi and broke these ideas down into 4 themes, which you can see in the slide on the screen right now. Theme 1 was geared towards environmental science and biology. We had an idea to somehow incorporate farming techniques or growing and harvesting crops, the idea of farm to table and sustainable farming into coursework. Our second theme was more specifically geared towards business, and we thought it would be a good idea for business students to learn more about the small business opportunities that are present at the farmers market with all of the vendors that are there. Our third theme was for first year seminars, and we thought that this could be a good opportunity to involve students at the farmers market and get them to just meet new people and build their horizons and get to know the Gettysburg community better. And our fourth theme was aimed primarily towards Spanish courses, and we thought that this could do a good job at enhancing the learning experience not only of Spanish students, but also giving them an opportunity to interact with the Spanish community in Gettysburg. And we ended up sharing these ideas with the professors that showed interest and ultimately received a lot of promising feedback for next semester, where we hope to implement these ideas once the farmers market is open for the season, which starts in May. And throughout this program, I'd say my biggest takeaway was probably in regard to the design thinking process. Gigs has taught me the importance of focusing on the process that one should go through in order to reach a final outcome. My group and I frequently wanted to jump ahead to the end and just implement our ideas because we were really excited about them, but we were frequently reminded to just slow down and focus on individual aspects of the process that ultimately helped us have a more thought out final project. And in regards to coursework, this project has connected back to coursework for me personally by providing an opportunity to work in a more real world like environment. In classes, we frequently are posed with problems and questions that are in attempts to simulate real world situations, but I think gigs did a really good opportunity at providing participants with an opportunity to work with people outside of the academic world while still maintaining a low stress environment and giving us the opportunity to step out of our comfort zone without being afraid that it could have negative impact on us in some other way. And I feel that this has been beneficial for me because it's taught me how to interact and collaborate with adults that are other than just professors in a more professional environment. And it's also helped me improve my presentation skills, which is important both in and out of the classroom, and has definitely, I've applied them frequently since completing the project. And overall, I found this program more beneficial than I imagined it being, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you, Katie. And now we had another group that worked on a design challenge for the farmers market. And next up is Aisha Voyer, who will talk about this one.
Yeah, so as Stina said, my name is Aisha Roy, and I am one of the representatives from another team working with the Adams County Farmers Market Association. So to start off, we were assigned with the task of finding a new location for the farmers market, but we quickly realized that was a bit redundant as there was already a board designed for handling this task. So we decided to create a COVID-based layout. So after many interviews and feedback from stakeholders, such as customers, vendors, board members, and partners of the Farmers Market Association, we decided to enhance the website that was already being used this past season, following feedback from our interviews. And through this, we suggested incorporating a rating system of products and vendors, a drop-down menu that allows for people to, I guess, filter their product and vendors, and many more things that was included. So overall, I learned about the equity-centered design thinking process and how to incorporate this into our work to create the best possible product and experience according to the needs of our clients. And with that, I also got hands-on consulting experience, which was amazing. And I got to understand my role in a team professionally, especially in a project that I not only cared about, but that a lot of the people that we were working about cared about. So in terms of, I guess, connection to curricular coursework, so I'm an education studies minor, and we spend a lot of time learning and brainstorming and also practicing how to modify curriculum that we're required to teach to meet the needs of our students. And this is exactly what was happening here. So my team members and I put a lot of focus into the comments and the feedbacks from stakeholders in order to build a prototype that would not only incorporate all of the requirements they were suggesting, but also to improve their experiences at the farmers market that they cherish so much.
Thank you very much, Aisha. And next up, we have Erin Kirby representing the group that worked with Healthy Adams County.
Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Kirby, and our group worked with Healthy Adams County, and our two main goals were to connect more with a younger audience, as that was most of their audience had been older people. They wanted to expand, and also just to understand more of what the community wanted to focus on. And one way we did this is through a survey, and this is an example of results. And we sent it out through their Facebook, and it helped us focus on, helped find what events we could focus on in the future. And then the next slide, we gave an example of an Instagram, because that was one way we thought they could help connect with a younger audience, was to use social media. So we outlined how they could make an account and how it could be similar to their Facebook. And through working with her, with Healthy Adams County, for home consulting, we had to learn how to take a step back. And because when we were told the idea of just how to connect with more people, we had a huge range of ideas how we could do it, and we really had to work on narrowing in. And that was something that I think we all improved upon, was communicating ideas with each other and focusing on one topic. And then through human-centered design, which we talked about during our meetings with gigs, when we were brainstorming, we tried to take in other contexts of communities we have experienced in the past. For example, members of our group, we went and looked at what our own communities have done to reach out to people our age and try to apply it back and give our community group an idea of how they could further their ideas. And personally, how I related it to coursework was, a lot of times in essays or in presentations, professors will tell you to focus on your point and not to branch off into various ideas and actually answer the question at hand. And that was something we really were doing in our presentation, because at first we had a whole host of ideas, but then we really zoned in on making a survey, finding out what the community needs, and then giving Healthy Adams County an idea of how they could share it. Yeah,
All right, thank you, Erin. Sorry I did not go through your slides quickly enough, but we definitely have them on demand if anyone is interested. Perfect. Okay. Now we have Molly Hoffman, who was part of the group that worked with the Latino task force.
Hi everyone, my name is Molly Hoffman and I'm representing the Latino Services Task Force. Our project was a vaccine information campaign targeted towards the Latino community in Adams County, but our resources could be used by everyone. So we started by doing a lot of research about the vaccine rollout, and we came to learn that minority populations were at risk of kind of falling through the cracks. And so what we did, on the next slide, you'll see that we created a Google form that was sent out to the Latino community in Adams County. We wanted to know if they were interested in getting the vaccine and how they got their vaccine information. As you can see, there was still an area for improvement. Some people didn't want to get the vaccine, and we decided to focus our energy on using the news sources that they use to give them the information they need to encourage them to get the vaccine. So on the next slide, you'll see that we created social media posts that focused on the who, what, where, when, and why of the vaccine rollout in Adams County. As you can see, they're in English and Spanish, so they're accessible to everyone. We didn't use a lot of medical terms, so everyone can understand them. And on the next few slides, you'll see our Instagram and Facebook pages that we created. And we will continue to post new updates as the PA guidelines are updated. We will continue to reach out to followers, tag local organizations in our posts, and give our posts to local organizations that already have large follower bases to reach the most amount of people as possible. And so what I learned through this program, I think my biggest takeaway was how much the important role that local organizations play in a community. I remember attending the Latino Services Task Force meeting and seeing all the representatives from local organizations and learning about what they're doing, learning about the problems they're tackling, learning about what they've accomplished in tackling those problems. And as someone who is very public service oriented, it was so inspiring to see that energy behind these problems and that you can create meaningful change and see hard results on a local level. And if you were to take away kind of the nonprofit sector of a community, so many things would go missing. And so that was really inspiring to see. And in terms of how I related it to my coursework, in my Intro to Public Policy class, we talk a lot about disproportionate minority impact, which is whenever a policy or program unintentionally but negatively affects a minority community. And so, for example, with the vaccine rollout, it might benefit the majority of the United States population to create information in English, but that doesn't mean you can just leave behind people who speak Spanish or other languages. They need that information too. And so I was definitely able to apply my public policy to this program so I can analyze and see, okay, the English resources might benefit the majority, but how can we help those people who aren't in the majority? They need this information too. How can we make sure that they aren't left behind in this process?
Great, thank you so much, Molly. And last but not least, David Medina, who was part of the group working with the Migrant Education Program.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Stina, for the introduction. So within my gigs group, our purpose was to try and determine for Migrant Ed how they can create an open and flexible relationship with parents in order to help them engage more in meetings. And what they really saw was, when we actually talked to these parents, was there was a big issue with participation and attendance specifically. So what my group and I decided to do was try to find areas within migrant education that really we were trying to hit on. So specifically, we saw areas such as the real world. They also wanted to connect to events, and then also family is a massive part of migrant education, and lastly, communication. So our first recommendation for migrant education was to create a program newsletter, and within this, they could inform the parents and also do spotlights for senior individuals. So when a student is graduating high school, they could actually spotlight them and just talk about some of their accomplishments, knowing one day that their child could be in the spotlight as well. The next was for them to actually run meeting debriefs. This was within the Diamond Performance Framework of just asking questions like, what did I expect? What did I learn? And what can I really do next time to become better? In doing this, it would be the self-reflection and also asking parents, hey, what would you like to see? Because at the end of the day, the parents are the customer for migrant education. So fitting their needs was key. And lastly, our third option was actually just to interact with these parents. Give them 5 minutes before and after so that they feel more connected to migrant education and want to go as families. That would increase a lot of the participation that we saw was their biggest issue. And specifically, what I learned was that it's great to actually have different mindsets. The other 3 individuals that I worked with, we had never met before. And at times, we didn't want to step on each other's toes, but we understood that if we did, we'd actually drive the ball even further and actually produce a better outcome for migrant education. And lastly, in my learning here at Gettysburg, I really feel that the GIGS program really helped me in better understanding more of the design thinking aspect and also just preparing myself for the real world. I think the liberal arts institution, specifically here at Gettysburg, really showcases that with all of the intertwinedness within all the extracurriculars and classes here. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you to all the student group representatives for your awesome summaries. I'm now going to turn it over to Brenda Reyes-Lua to talk a bit about the community relationship part and their feedback. And that's where our summer video will come in as well.
Thank you, Stina. So also just as Stina had mentioned in the beginning of our presentation, human-centered design thinking and humble consulting puts people at the core of its product and its programs. It's about designing with and not just for a community. So the role of the community partner was instrumental in the success of these projects as they are embedded within the local community and they best understand those that they work with. Our community partners provided the platform for our GIGS students to engage with and learn from the community. And it truly created a real partnership and learning. And so in that sense, acknowledging the importance of our partners, we also wanted to make sure that their voices were also represented today in our presentation. So we have compiled their feedback and reflections in a short video that Stina will share with you.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna need vocal feedback if this does not play, but I will share my screen with sound and video clip. So let's give this a go.
I see the video playing.
I feel that you really listened.
The way that you guys approach us in such a humble way, that was really the key point of having great communication between the consultant and us. You know, it does make a difference the way that somebody approaches you. So that really made that connection and that communication between us, like, you know, so fresh and so, you know, normal. We were happy. We trusted you guys as well. The parents also were very open with you guys when we had that meeting with them.
Currently, the farmers market actually is engaging in sort of like a professional consulting process for board development and strategic planning. And it's interesting because I see in the work that you're doing a lot of parallels and a lot of analogs and like all the same skills that you're cultivating that this professional consultant is sort of also applying to our growth as an organization. So these are definitely marketable skills. So so both things were pretty interesting and compelling because, well, A, because I like data, and B, because it was an idea that I had never encountered before or thought about prior to this process.
We're starting to work more now with our Black and African American community to do some outreach. And I will be using some of the tools that you guys put together. And I'm very excited because I do think that that we can touch people's lives and then hopefully we can reach them if they're ready to get vaccinated.
I definitely think that this is not only going to help with the relationship that we're going to have with the parents, but with the schools. Because we have a huge partnership with the school districts. There's 6 different school districts here in Adams County, and we, Araceli and I, we work with them. So it's definitely like for example, the newsletter. I think that's a great way to highlight not to only the parents, but the schools and like the other communities that work with us.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the answers. I mean, looking at the survey and what you found, but I do like the fact that you use that research to show the population we are missing because they're not using Facebook. So we can definitely use that to kind of justify having a budget, you know, to develop Instagram and some other platforms.
We're getting ready to launch our online storefront again this year, and I think that a lot of the feedback that I got from this presentation from you all, I will incorporate into the launch and into the coming market season.
I see myself as opening our first communications committee with your presentation.
And going into this, I had really hoped that that's exactly what would happen. So you've made that, you know, make that dream come true.
Yes.
And so I'll let you know how it goes, honestly. How about that? I'll keep you posted.
I would love to have at least one student representative on the communications committee.
Well, I have to say, this is my favorite part of the day. All the things you said have so much value, like the teamwork, observation skills, looking at the data, making decisions with the lens of equity and inclusion and empathy. Ultimately, like trying to look at that has been great.
You know, I've been working in human services my entire professional career. And what's the next generation going to do to support what we've done? And you know, without being overly emotional, you guys give me tremendous hope.
So this is great feedback, and I'm glad that this was helpful for you and your future journeys.
One second.
Thank you, Stina.
I will try to get our slides back. Oh, cool. I think here we are. Let me know if not.
All right. Yep, we are good. Well, in the midst of these challenging times, the Community Geeks team has been blown away and inspired by the student participants and the great outcomes of this program that have positively impacted our local community. We hope you leave today with a similar feeling after hearing the students and hearing our community partner testimonials. We're definitely looking forward to keep engaging and supporting our community in the coming years. With that being said, we would like to close our presentation with a couple call to action questions that you're looking at the screen, which would hopefully continue this conversation. You feel free to, at this point, either use the chat feature or mute yourself to get this conversation and discussion started. So we're hoping to spark the conversation with, how can you integrate this program in the work that you already do? How can you help us spread the word? And what opportunities do you see for similar programs to be incorporated in the strategic planning process? We're seeing some chat action coming in from Julie Ramsey. Hi, Julie, by the way. She's sharing that she would love to talk about this work with the Strategic Planning Committee, which we definitely would appreciate. So thank you for spreading the word on our program. And if you ever want to continue that conversation, I'm sure our team would be definitely happy to do so.
Well, I'll just say I'm really blown away and so pleased to see the work that you all have done and the comments and the reflections. I think this is an outstanding example of the kind of thing that the college does so well and can do and should really be recognized for. I guess one of my questions would be, have you guys thought about the issues around scaling a program like this? I know that it's these programs can be quite hands-on, labor intensive. So do you have thoughts about that? But mainly I just want to say great job to the students and to the staff. Outstanding, really.
Thank you, Julie. And please, for the rest of our team, feel free to jump in. We are definitely in the stages of collecting feedback from our students and our community partners to reassess and look into our next year, because we would love to offer this program moving forward. And actually, Professor Heather Otto Disu has already started spreading the word about our program and encouraging our OMS students majors to join community gigs as part of their requirements, as part of graduation, as one of their options to do. So we're kind of already signed up for it without really knowing, in a way, which, I mean, no, definitely we want to continue this great work, and we're gonna definitely keep thinking about how specifically can we scale this in as we're moving through these years. So thank you.
This is David. Dave and Pat Crowner. And this was a wonderful program, and we will be very willing to help spread the word to the appropriate committees at St. James Lutheran Church.
That sounds amazing. Wonderful. Yes, we would. I mean, of course, we would love to scale it in terms of size, but kind of, Julie, to your point on the work, is it has worked surprisingly well to offer asynchronous workshops. So I've recorded the design thinking workshop with live attendance, and then also guided folks through pausing the video and then doing something asynchronously, scanning their sketches and sending them to me, because that just simply worked better for the availability of the students as well. So that is something that I kind of, I think it's been an interesting epiphany over this pandemic. Then in terms of scaling, there are ideas on perhaps taking this beyond the local community. Perhaps alumni find this helpful, but that's something that those are like blue sky ideas that are yet to be discussed.
I do think, just to add to that, that is something that we've been cognizant of the whole time, is sort of, this is really looking at this and how we can build on this moving forward. And so a lot of the documentation and making sure that we have things in place, and also speaking to Stina's point with learning how well the asynchronous events work. And some of the students sometimes at times would say that they preferred that. So I think we really have a base that we can build on to incorporate and grow it into, the plan is to definitely increase the number of students and community partners.
I love how we got a prospective community partner out of this today. That's wonderful.
Katie, in the meantime, I don't know if you would like to share about the Colby program as well.
Yeah, so I think, it's been interesting. Word has gotten out in little bits and pieces around the campus community. So we were also contacted by Charwise, who has sent out information to the students on building on these research projects and connections to the community through the Colby Fellowship. So I just think there's a lot of, it just highlights that there are a lot of opportunities to branch out from this into other directions as well.
I think we have a raised hand.
Yep.
David Flessner.
Yes, I have a question. To what extent were the transient immigrants considered separately, or their special needs as distinct from the more permanent residents?
I can talk a little bit about that. So the Latino Services Task Force kind of works directly with the Latino community, but migrant education in itself, its definition to qualify for it to be migrant education is that you would have to have moved within the last 36 months. So there's that mobility aspect. So they're working directly with a lot of the newcomers within our county and addressing those needs. So again, in the context of the Latinx community, our local Latinx community in the county, we had the Latino Services Task Force, kind of the overarching, but then also migrant education focusing directly on the newcomers.
And I'm looking at the chat as well. And Ryan Kearney, thank you so much for your comment. We would definitely love any opportunities to spread the word about these programs. So we'll certainly be in touch about the JCCTL summer program to do that as well. Thank you. We're definitely all about connecting and making more partnerships around campus. So you are all going to be our partners and advocates on this task. So we definitely appreciate that help.
Marcela, if no one else has, I have another question. I'm just curious, I noted that the students had really good positive reflections on what they took away from this experience. I'm just wondering, could you say more about how you managed the reflection process, how that was handled, how much time went into that to sort of help the students draw out those lessons from the experience?
Yeah, definitely. And please, Stina, Katie, Brenda, feel free to jump in as well if I'm missing anything. But our program started in the fall. Kick it off in the fall, a little later than expected, because obviously everything has been unexpected through these months. But we really started with them taking trainings, as Stina was sharing, in humble consulting, in human design centered design thinking. And that definitely started off reflecting not only on this program, but also within themselves. What's a role in a team? All those team dynamics processes that come into play, and giving them the tools so that they're aware of their privilege, for example, through the design thinking process before they even get in touch with their community partner. So they receive all those tools before they started interacting with the nonprofit organization they were working with. Through that, we still had a couple other trainings in the design thinking process and the humble consulting that was also helping with their team dynamics. And they were having periodic meetings with a coach, which is one of us, one of the team staff from Community Gigs. And each team really took it in different ways, the way that they would be working together. So as you might have heard from Stina, one of the teams was meeting every Friday at 4 p.m., for example. Others might have taken another route. Each group really worked differently. And so that definitely helped to kind of make it more student-led, for sure. That was one of the key aspects of this program. And ultimately, all those foundations from the trainings helped as they were having these lenses as they were working with their community partners and reflecting on their own. Through the process this semester, around March timeframe, we also conducted almost like a check-in with students. We wanted to collect some of their feedback so far as part of their experience in this program. So we were able to kind of identify what were some of the themes that they were coming up from their experiences working in this program. And as previously mentioned, we're also working right now on collecting additional feedback as we are now looking back to the program and say, okay, what worked well, what can we do better, and making sure that the program did what we were hoping to do. However, so far from the conversations that we've heard in these presentations, we have definitely identified that more likely our objectives were on point and we did accomplish what we were hoping to. Stina, Katie, Brenda, feel free to jump in if I missed anything else.
I think that was a great summary, and one option for perhaps years down the road would be for upper class students to be those coaches in design thinking, perhaps to kind of have that that student leadership aspect in it as well. But oh yeah, just a future idea.
Thank you.
I think one thing that I found particularly surprising that I think we didn't expect when we were headed into this was the power of the group work, about how much it meant for the student groups to connect with each other and to meet people that they hadn't met on campus before. And that kept coming up in all of the reflections pretty regularly, I think, across all the groups. So that was kind of a fun, unexpected finding.
I believe we have another question on the chat from Niemann. How are the teams selected? Would someone like, I've been talking a lot and I don't mean to overtake this in any way.
Although I think you were the one who created the groups, were you not, Marcela? So maybe that is your area of expertise.
Well, I mean, now that you put me on the spot, but I mean, it was a teamwork, but the process was, first of all, an application where students fill out a Google form to express their interest in this program. And in addition to that, we definitely wanted to get to know them in a deeper level, just to get to know who they are as a person, as a student, what they're interested in. So we wanted to have that 360 type of perspective before selecting the student participants. And so we had a one-on-one conversation with our student applicants to then select the group that would be taking part in this pilot program from the beginning. We definitely were very transparent with them, saying this is a pilot program. Everything is new for us, bear with us. And they were signing up for the ride with us, which we were very, very thrilled and excited about. And then we, within those conversations, within the application, they did share what were their interests. So we tried our best to implement that when we were composing the teams. We definitely want them to be diverse. So as you could tell, there were first-year students, there were seniors as part of the program. So that definitely helped to keep a nice mix of different people that they could work with as part of this process. So ultimately, we tried our best to keep their interests. They had a priority, option 1, 2, 3, I believe, and from the community partners, because we did share with them, these are the organizations who are going to be part of our pilot program. So they did know, in a sense, what type of populations would they be potentially be working with. I hope that answers your question, Niamit.
Other questions, comments? Thank you for all those great questions.
Yeah, we started off not really knowing what to expect at all moving forward. And luckily, we can say that we have been pleasantly surprised along the way. We didn't really know how many students would be interested in this pilot program even. We were expecting maybe 15 to 20 students would be great. And we were surprised by the higher number of students who were hoping to be part of this experience. And we had a couple students who had to be placed on a wait list, unfortunately, but we definitely tried our best to offer this opportunity to as many students as possible. We definitely had a hard time selecting the students who would be ultimately be selected for this program.
32 students participated. I don't know what the ratio is to applications, interviews, selections currently.
I think we had about 50 applications originally.
If you're interested in hearing more about the in-depth presentations, we have all of this recorded, as well as a Saturday event summit with summaries with the community partners, which were a good conversation. So we would be happy to share the playlist of those videos if you want to dig a little deeper.